This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
You're plugged in for the Podcast Wrestling Society, where you can get dynamic weekly pro wrestling and MMA-related content. Give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PODWRES Society so that you can stay in the know.
Faith is the place. The sky's the limit.
And if you like what you hear, give us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button.
Woo! 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 Woo!
Now, your host, he is the
One and only
Troy Adams.
Did I hear somebody say Wrestling Wednesday? Because here at the Podcast Wrestling Society, we're limousine riding, jet flying, sons of guns. I'm your loving leader, benevolent host, Midwest monster, and the styling and profiling Troy Adams. And I'm having a hard time keeping these alligators down. And wheeling and dealing with me today, he is the Arn Anderson to my Ric Flair. From the Delvin Cox experience, he is the enforcer, Delvin Cox. What's up, man?
Let me tell you something, brother. When you're in the Podcast Wrestling Society, it only goes down one way, and it's our way, or else.
PWS 4 Live. We went from like Full Horseman to New World Order.
Yeah, because I couldn't think of how Arn Anderson talks.
He didn't really have anything special. You just have to kind of talk like a hick. I lost feeling in my left hand, and the significant thing about that is that's my beer opening hand. Kevin Nash is such an a-hole. For those of you that don't remember that promo, it's when the NWO impersonated the Four Horsemen on Nitro. That was something. I like how Nash said that like Arn was fine with it until he called home and his wife gave him grief. Was like, why'd you let him make you look like an idiot like that? And then like later in the elevator, he was like, why'd you do that to me, man? He's double fisting beers. And Nash said he just like hit the up button and closed the doors.
Can we talk about the fact that Kevin Nash is a complete dick?
Oh, well, absolutely. And you know what? He was one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah, he's awesome as like a wrestler. But if you hear his history of the things he did, like the way he used to amp up Goldberg.
Oh, man.
Like to influence, like, because Goldberg was green. He didn't know what the hell was going on. He didn't know how to move in the locker rooms and stuff like that. He would just amp up Goldberg and get Goldberg in trouble and make Goldberg like he was at one side. But it really was just Kevin Nash with him.
Yeah, basically. And that's, well, and people said that was like what he did, or Jericho said that's what he did in WWE. Like he was like a puppet master of like when they got into a fight, Jericho and Goldberg. He said that Nash was sitting there like orchestrating the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think he also said that Nash was the one who kind of put the kibosh on the whole Jericho-Goldberg first feud that was supposed to happen in WCW, because he kept telling Goldberg, you're not supposed to be losing that little guy.
Yeah, well, you don't want to let him make you look like an a-hole. Like, come on, man.
It's crazy because he doesn't get any flack for that at all.
He gets a little bit, but yeah, no, I mean, like, well, the thing is, like, big wrestling fans all talk crap about him. Like, you know, the people who grew up watching Kevin Nash, 9 out of 10 of them will, like, they know the story, they've seen what he's done and how he was, and a lot of them are just like, man, screw this guy anymore.
Yeah. Kevin Nash is kind of, like, I like Kevin Nash, but he's kind of been a dick in the past to people, like, big time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, for those of you out there that want to hear more talk about stuff involving Kevin Nash kind of screwing over, I mean, it wasn't his call, but yeah, he was part of screwing over the fans. last week, Greg and I, we did a comparison between Monday Night Raw is War back then and WCW Nitro from the Georgia Dome on January 4th, 1999. That is the night where on Nitro we had the finger poke of doom to close the show when it was advertised to be Goldberg versus Nash for the title. And God, that was the night of the famous Tony Schiavone saying the line of, because Raw was pre-taped that night, and he said, no need to flip over there in the main event. Oh, yeah, and I'm paraphrasing. When he said in the main event of their show that's already been pre-recorded, Mick Foley, who used to wrestle here as Cactus Jack, has won their world title. That'll put some butts in the seats. And then
that sucks, fam. I will say that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, over 1 million people flipped the channel.
Yeah, but that really sucked for Tony Schiavone because he was doing what he was told to do, essentially.
Yeah.
And it backfired so bad. He's even said himself, I didn't want to do that. I like Mick Foley. It doesn't, you don't.
Well, and if you think about it, that night, and we talk about it on the podcast, and we tell why this was, but that night, Eric Bischoff was actually sitting right next to Tony Schiavone during that call, like at the commentary desk. So yeah, and we talk about why it was. We run down the whole Nitro, and I mean, we leave out some stuff that doesn't really matter. Same with Raw, but we run down both shows, compare and contrast, and all that good stuff. So definitely go check that out. It was a big historic night in wrestling history.
Yes.
In the future, we are going to cover the night. I can't remember when it was. It was in July of, I want to say, 98 on one channel on Nitro. The main event was Goldberg beating Hollywood Hogan for the world title, and on the other channel, we had things like the Nation of D-Generation X impersonating the Nation of Domination wearing blackface.
Yeah, that was. I just talked about it today. It was 1998 in the Georgia Dome.
Yep.
I remember that night specifically because that's one of my favorite matches in wrestling history by far.
I've got to go back and watch it because I was not a WCW kid growing up, so I didn't watch it.
The good thing about that match that I liked about it so much was that it was unexpected for one thing, because WCW, for better or worse, has always had these kind of botched finishes in terms of like how the whole Sting thing at Starrcade was botched and Hogan ended up back with the belt, and Luger won the belt for one night, and it's just like Hogan got the belt back. And so it kind of felt like when you hear this big match between Goldberg and Hogan on Nitro, the first thing everybody thought was, well, they're going to screw Goldberg.
Yep.
And then even like because a lot of people don't remember this, before he fought Hogan, Goldberg had to fight Scott Hall earlier that night. Yeah. And he had a really good match with Scott Hall. Arguably that match is better than the Hogan match. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Like I said, I've got him in my watch list on the WWE Network right now. Cheap plug. But yeah, so I got to go back and watch because I watched that Raw because I was a WWF kid. But my dad, and it was more of, I was 7 years old at the time, so I didn't really have control of the clicker, and I was 18. So you're about 10 years older than me. All right, so yeah, that was 98. Yeah, I was 18. Yeah, 17, I was a few months away from turning 8. But yeah, my dad was a WWF guy, so ergo I watched WWF. Yeah, I can see that being a thing because my stepdad was a WCW guy, but also, and this is something that I thought was boneheaded on WCW's behalf. Nitro came on twice the same night. Yeah. Like, it came on at 8 o'clock, and if I'm correct, after, at 11 o'clock. So you essentially could watch Raw, finish watching Raw, then watch Nitro, if you wanted to. There was a time Greg talked about this because he lives on the West Coast, and he talked about there for years he never had to channel
go back and forth on his channels because he could watch the West Coast feed of one and the East Coast feed of the other.
Yes.
So by the time Nitro was over, he could start watching Raw, or vice. I think that was the way it went.
Yeah, exactly. And that, like, I used to watch Nitro for the most part. I watch Raw a lot too, but I used to flip through between the channels. But for the most part, once 9 o'clock hit, because Nitro started an hour earlier than Raw. Once 9 o'clock hit, you can get on Raw for a good while and know that, whatever I missed on Nitro, I can always go back and watch at 11 o'clock.
Right.
So that kind of just shows the incompetence at that time of WCW in terms of how they could have did that a lot better. Maybe they should have had that show like, okay, we'll show it Tuesday night or something like that. But once you give people the option of, hey, you always can come back and watch WCW an hour, like right after the Raw, people are going to probably say, well, you know what? I ain't got to watch it right now. It takes the urgency out of it.
Yep. Yeah, I grew up mostly, watching WWF because my dad we grew up northern Ohio. It was kind of WWF territory. He would actually go to Richfield Coliseum near Cleveland to see the matches all the time. So, that's just how it was. But real quick, before we dive into anything else, obviously for those of you out there listening, the guy I'm talking to is not Greg. Greg could not be here this week. But I've been on this man's podcast. I've been on his Patreon. I owed him at least one show. And we haven't been able to get anything set up until now. But you are here today, sir. Tell them a little bit about yourself, and your podcast.
Spoilers, I don't do a wrestling podcast, but that's okay because I have wrestling podcasts I listen to, like Podcast Wrestling Society and things like that. So I'm always covered there. But I do a podcast called The Delvin Cox Experience. It's a podcast where I basically interview people and get different takes from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different cultures, and get a better understanding for how people work, man. It's a really cool podcast. Everybody should check it out. Whether you're a wrestling fan or not, sometimes we talk about wrestling. It's for everybody. That's the best way to describe it.
Absolutely. I have quite a few friends in podcasting, out of podcasting, whatnot, that know and like your show. Most of them are already subscribers. So if any of you out there listen to this show and have not heard his show, at least give it a chance. I mean, what's an average run time for your show?
45 minutes.
There you go, man. Like, you can listen to it to and from work on the road, Like, doesn't take that long. It's not like he's got some 3-hour marathon of a podcast.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. Because I know how it is. People's time is important, and I know sometimes people, especially people who like to listen to podcasts, they don't want to listen to one podcast a day. They generally like to go through a whole gambit of podcasts and stuff like that. So when you have these 3-hour podcasts, sometimes people can't get through it, especially if you're not saying anything substantial in it.
The only time I'll listen to a long-form podcast is like, that goes longer than an hour and a half, is like if you're a celebrity or if you have specific insight into something that I really care about, usually wrestling.
Yeah, I can see that because I'm like that as well. It's not too many podcasts I listen to that's over an hour.
Right. Yeah. So that's why we're we try to keep it a good length here on PWS. We had a problem with that a few times, getting around 2 hours or whatnot back in the old days. But, this is episode 51. We are next week, we will officially be 1 year old.
That is awesome.
Oh, yeah. This podcast is a year old next week. So I'm very excited about that. And for our big 1 year, 52nd episode, the great Taryn Bland, who's been on the show before, will join me. And we're going to be covering all of this weekend's festivities, which, from the time this drops, this weekend coming up. But spoilers, look behind the camera, not to give away, not to kill the business or anything, but we're recording on Friday. So for us, it's like not this weekend, but next weekend. Did you see all the festivities coming up in that weekend?
Trying to think it was Fyter Fest you talking about week?
No, this coming weekend will be Fight for the Fallen, AEW.
This coming weekend already?
Oh yeah.
Jeez,
yep.
That time flew by.
I know.
I didn't even realize
it's crazy.
that.
Yep. It's going to be Fight for the Fallen is going to be Evolve's 50th anniversary, streaming on the WWE Network.
Okay. We'll watch that.
Yep. Extreme Rules.
I'll watch that.
Yeah, of course. And then UFC 239 is, well, actually, I'm sorry, that's that already passed. For all of you, since Delvin and I are recording on Friday, I will put a little tidbit in on the end of the show talking about UFC 239. It's a big card. John Jones, Thiago Santos, Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm.
Holly Holmes, right? Yeah.
Yep. Jorge Masvidal and Ben Askren. Good stuff. Obviously, from the time you were hearing this, everybody, the fights have already happened. For everybody else,
they were great fights.
Yeah, at the end of, I'm sure they were great fights. We'll talk about it more at the end.
I'm shocked at the results of that other fight.
Yeah. If Nunes wins, has won, whatever, best in the world by far. If Holly Holm wins, I'm going to be like, holy crap. That's like two monsters she's taken down in, Nunes and Rousey. So I realize Nunes isn't undefeated, but when was the last time she's lost a fight?
It's been a minute, and she kind of picked up that baton and kept rolling after Ronda Rousey kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how this fight goes down and who wins it.
Yep. And we'll talk next week. I'll talk with Taryn Bland again about UFC Fight Night 155. It's Jermaine de Randami, I don't know how to pronounce his name, versus Aspen Ladd. The fight I'm really looking forward to, just because of one guy in particular, Uriah Faber taking on Ricky Simon.
That should be good.
Yeah, that's the only fight I care about. The rest of the card, I mean, the women's bantamweight, is the main event. Cool. I'm going to watch it. It might be a fantastic fight. I don't know. But I'm really looking forward to the Uriah Faber fight because I like Uriah Faber.
Yeah,
so
he's really good.
I've never seen Ricky Simon. So, but we'll run it all down next week with the great Taryn Bland. It might be a long episode. You never know. We'll see how fast we can get through all that stuff. But yeah, we're talking about current events today, man. Real quick, to bring everybody down, right, to start off the podcast, Jacques Rougea Sr. has died.
Wow, that sucks.
Yeah. For those of you, no, the one in the WWF was Jacques Rougea Jr. Yes. This was a legend from Canada. And there are 3 Rougea boys? All 3 of them were wrestlers.
I think I didn't know that.
I did not know that. The third one was, crud, I just pulled it, Armand Rougea. He never wrestled in the WWE or WCW. He I guess he had to retire early because of an injury. But yeah, but Jacques Rougea and Raymond Rougea were his sons. But yeah, he was. I'm bad at doing math in my head here. He was born 1930, so I mean, 89.
He lived a relatively long life.
Yeah, I mean, almost 90. I mean, that's pretty good for a professional wrestler, man.
Yeah.
Another person who just passed away was Perro Aguayo Sr.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with a lot of his work? Because I am not.
A little bit, not too much.
I feel really bad. I need to have Santiago on here from Local Trash Podcast, by the way. Check him out. He's a big AAA fan. He I guess he was born in Mexico, and he grew up watching AAA. So I'm sure he knows all about Perro Aguayo.
It's always sad when you lose these wrestlers because a lot of the time, especially the older ones, they are part of people's childhoods. Like,
right.
I remember when Macho Man passed away. I couldn't believe it. It didn't sound real because you grew up loving this character, and now it's not. He's not there anymore, and it's to the point where you still it still resonates with you.
Right. Well, there are some. I mean, Macho Man was one of them where it's like, man, I can't believe he's gone. That was one of them that hit really hard. Eddie Guerrero hit me really hard just because he was so young, and I was a huge fan. But yeah, real quick, just to touch on the Perro Aguayo thing again. For those of you who don't remember, his son was tragically, he died in the ring facing Rey Mysterio back in 2015. Yeah. He died.
Hard to watch.
Yeah, he died during a match in Tijuana, Mexico. He was drop kicked to the back, if I remember correctly, and he kind of fell on the ropes, like, to take a 619. Ray went to do it, and Perro Aguayo Jr. kind of like slumped down, and Ray stopped in like mid 619, and was like, "What's wrong?" And he's looking at him. He's like, "Something ain't right here." And they get to him, and yeah, it just he passed away. He was only 35. Perro Aguayo Sr. was 73. So to me, 73 isn't that old.
It's not. It's not at all.
I think Vince McMahon is older than that, isn't he?
I think so.
I mean, I realize Vince McMahon wasn't out there, taking bumps night in and night out, but still. According to Uncle Dave from the Wrestling Observer, he's usually consistent about this kind of stuff. He said Perro Aguayo was a huge draw in many territories that he wrestled in. He was described by a lot of people as a cross between Terry Funk and Bruno Sammartino. And a lot of people, WWF doesn't recognize this because it was their first go at a light heavyweight title back in the day. But he was the first ever WWF light heavyweight champion pre-1997.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yep. And in 2012, he was inducted into the AAA Hall of Fame.
I wonder, will he get inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame, since you mentioned that?
What was the question?
I said, I wonder, will he get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
He probably will get like that legacy award type deal.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess by the way, his cause of death was infarction, which is tissue death due to inadequate blood supply to an affected area. Wow. His funeral was held on the 4th of July in Guadalajara. Oy, man. That's sad. So, I mean, maybe it was because they said he was like known for blading a lot. Maybe he bladed and it got infected. I don't know.
Yeah, they gotta find a better way to do that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna take a quick break now while I'm thinking of it. When we come back, I'm actually gonna we're gonna move on to something about bleeding. Well, it's not about bleeding, but there was blood involved, and I know you brought this up. You wanted to talk about it. We will talk about it on the other end of this break, where we tell you about some other great podcasts here on the new home of the Podcast Wrestling Society, Big Heads Media Network. We'll be right back.
In a world
where digital content barrels towards us at relentless breakneck speeds, where posts and memes and tweets and snaps rain down a punishing assault of attention-grabbing data. 3 heroic podcasters with a strong background in broadcast media are taking on the internet. Each week, we break down the trends, technology, and connections that are transforming our lives. We are Things I Found Online.
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Midnight Agent Raw.
And I'm Okame.
We are the Super Media Bros Podcast.
Each week, we give a comedically informative take on movies,
music,
television,
video games,
and much more.
Put your shades on and listen to all episodes on supermediabrospodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yeah,
Shades on.
we're off.
All right, we are back here on the Podcast Wrestling Society. I've got Delvin Cox from the Delvin Cox Experience with me today. No Greg. He will be off for the next couple of weeks. And Delvin actually saved me today because I was going to have to do pull some of our YouTube exclusives and make a show out of it, which I wasn't super fond of. But, you know, I figured, hey, I owed you a show, man. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while. Now is as good a time as ever.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to be on. It's a great show. I'm excited.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we love having new guests on here as long as, you know, they know what they're talking about and they got something good to say. And I told Santiago I was going to have you on, and he was like, "Oh, good, he knows his stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of got that."
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of knowing your stuff, man, we were talking about real quick to wrap up with Mexico, kind of leading into our next subject. TripleMania XXVII is coming up, and after that happens, I'm going to have Santiago on this show. We're going to review everything that happened. That is, for those of you that don't know, that's AAA's biggest event of the year. It's their WrestleMania. And it's going to have a couple of big matches. So supposedly it's going to be Hair versus Mask to close out the show, as Blue Demon Jr. versus Ray Wagner, formerly Dr. Wagner Jr. So that's big. Also, Cain Velasquez is going to make his wrestling debut, teaming with Psycho Clown. I believe Psycho Clown, Cody Rhodes, and Cain Velasquez are going to team up to take on the team of El Tejano Jr., Taurus, and a mystery partner. That's going to be big.
That should be interesting.
Some people are speculating that their mystery partner will be Killer Cross, but we will see.
That would be good. Cool. That'd be really good.
It would make sense because actually, I don't know if you'll believe this or not, but it's very true. The two men who are training Cain Velasquez are Killer Cross and Disco Inferno.
I think I've heard that somewhere. I don't remember where I heard it from. I remember somebody saying that they're training him, and the first thing everybody thought was, Cain Velasquez training for wrestling. Obviously, everybody thinks Brock Lesnar. Why not set it up so he can fight Brock Lesnar?
Yep. Well, I don't know. I mean, he seems to like AAA. I don't think he's going to stay down there. But what I'm thinking is, because you know they have a working relationship with AEW.
Yes.
I'm thinking he's going to make his North America, or, well, Mexico is North America, his United States debut again at an AEW show.
I can see that happen.
And he could be their Brock Lesnar.
That would be cool.
I think that would be pretty sweet. There are a couple of matches booked, or most of the matches are already booked. For all of you wanting to know when that TripleMania review is going to be, it's August 7th. So at the end of this month is going to be TripleMania, is going to be taking place Saturday, August 3rd. And it's going to be live on Twitch for free. So everybody watch it if you get the chance.
Yeah, and I've actually watched AAA wrestling on Twitch before. I found it by mistake, and it's really cool.
I've never sat and watched the whole show. I wanted to watch last year's show, but I'm glad after I saw I'll call them lowlights, that I didn't watch, because my word, there were so many gaffes on that show. I don't know if you've seen, there was like a half-hour-long video floating around of all the screw-ups on that show last year.
No, I didn't see the half-hour video, but I watched a lot of the show because, like I said, I found it by accident. It just happened to me like, I was on Twitch and I was looking for wrestling. I think I was looking for Impact, because Impact's on Twitch now. And that show came up, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool, because what you don't know about AAA wrestling is a lot of independent wrestlers that you will know are usually on their shows.
Yeah. And there are some, like Taya Valkyrie is a big name in AAA, has been for a while.
Yes.
So, well, I'm not going to go through all these matches, but they got a Reina de Reinas championship match, which is their women's title. It's going to be TLC, a bunch of women in this match, including Taya Valkyrie, Tessa Blanchard, some people you may know. This is the one that I really wanted to cover. The Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid versus the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega in a Fyter Fest rematch.
That should be cool. Spoilers, the Lucha Bros are going to win.
Yeah. I brought this up to Santiago. I was like, dude, what is it with AAA? They're like, you guys go over in America, we're going to rebook it and get our win back in Mexico.
Yeah. They do that all the time. Because of, I know you probably don't remember this, but before there was the internet, WCW do this a lot, where they would send their big name talent to Japan to lose to the Japan stars. And the Japan stars would come over here and lose to the WCW stars, and nobody would know the difference, because they wasn't short. People didn't see the Japan shows back then. You'd have to go actually like search out a Japan tape to see. Sting fought the Great Muta and lost down there, and now Sting fighting the Great Muta in America, and he's beating Great Muta's butt. You know that.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of still that same thing today, but now you can watch all the fights, so you can see.
Well, that's what I brought this up, or Greg brought it up before when we covered the Russo era in WCW. He had, I think, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion lose his title on Nitro, unbeknownst to New Japan, and New Japan flipped out, and they were like, F you, give us our belt back. So that kind of screwed that up.
Yeah, that sounds like something that Russo would do.
Yeah. Now in the archives, by the way, go check it out. Quite a few episodes on that. Good stuff. But either way, Santiago doesn't think that the Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid are going to go over. He thinks the Elite are going to win again, because he's like, well, that would make them look petty. I'm like, oh, yes, because AAA is above looking petty.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even about looking petty. I think it's because it's their guys.
Yeah.
And this is in WWE. WWE, when it's their guys and they're in their hometown, guess who's going to win? Not you. But
oh, yeah.
It doesn't work like that in AAA.
Nope. Definitely not. What did you think of Fyter Fest?
I thought it was good. I think a lot of people are hating on it because they expected double or nothing.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at it like that. I felt like it was, if to put it on levels, I feel like it's a Clash of the Champions. I know you don't remember that, because you were like, what, 8 years old when not even 8 years old. You probably wasn't even born when WCW was doing Clash of the Champions every like month or so.
Well, they brought it back in what, 97, 98, something like that.
I think they did like do 2 or 3 back then. But I remember Clash of the Champions because, for those who don't know, for those who are Troy age, Clash of the Champions were like these big events that WCW used to do on regular TV. They were like monthly events, either monthly, every couple of months. They'd do like almost a pay-per-view quality event, but not quite pay-per-view quality event, just on regular TV. And that's what Fyter Fest essentially was.
Yeah, and, well, if for all of you out there, and and it was free, you could watch it on Bleacher Report or BR Live, whatever.
Yeah. And the replays are free too.
Yeah, yeah. And any of you out there who want to know about because Clash of the Champions came along after this, but Greg and I had compared it to Saturday night's main event for WWF.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, that's a really good one.
And Greg and I actually talk about that in the archives now. Saturday night's main event, the best of. Go check that out after this podcast, of course. Gotta get my stuff in, brother. But yeah, Fyter Fest, I thought was, I mean, it was okay. But my thing here is, this is a brand new promotion. These are commercials, basically. Well, not commercials. I mean, these are big events. But this is a first taste of your promotion that people are going to sample.
I think you're right. It was a commercial for AEW, essentially.
Yeah. But this here, man, like the freaking 2 in a row, man, the buy-in sucks so hard every time. And, like, at least this buy-in, it had one good match. It was that 6-man, 3-team tag that they had. But, dude, that freaking, the Librarian BS versus Alley, and then the, what was it, that hardcore match that they had. Like, my good Lord, man. I
don't know if you listen to JR's podcast, but he talked about that in detail, how bad it was. He's like, I didn't even watch it because it was so bad. Like,
yeah, he said he was hiding from it.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, he's the voice of your promotion, and he said he was hiding from it. It was so bad.
Yeah, I think they're gonna work that out. They're gonna definitely work that out, and I'm glad that, because I feel like those acts should have went on, but I'm glad that was essentially the pre-show instead of that being on the main card per se.
But the thing is, they can't afford to do a WWE with their pre-show, because WWE's like, well, these matches, like, whatever, we'll throw them on the pre-show, nobody cares. Okay, people are still going to watch them. With AEW, especially with Double or Nothing, people were still deciding whether or not they were going to pay that $50-$60 to order the damn show. They saw that buy-in, and a lot of people were saying, if I hadn't already paid for the show, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I think it mattered more with Double or Nothing than it did with Fyter Fest. I would say that.
Yeah.
Because Double or Nothing, you're paying for that show.
I will say, like, Fyter Fest, it had some cool moments, but a lot of the show just seemed like they were just, excuse the term, but it seemed like they were just sitting around jerking each other off the whole show. Like,
what show did you watch where they jerking each other off?
Well, just like they were like ingratiating each other throughout the whole thing. It was like, oh, we're gonna, jerk around with our buddies and, be, like the stupid little comedy stuff.
Yeah, like, it was an element of that. I can see that.
I didn't get it at first because I didn't know what they were trying to do. And then later it was like, I heard, oh, it's a spoof on Fyre Festival and whatever. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. It was still dumb.
Yeah.
Their backstage segments, 2 shows in a row, have been awful. They need to step it up with that.
I think they will. I think that they're just they're getting out the kinks still. I think that it's going to take time, and they're going to get it ready. It's going to be ready by the time their TNT show debuts, because I feel like these shows that they're doing now are kind of just a test bed for that, and it's a good thing that they're doing these shows now to get all the kinks out now, because one of the things I did notice when I was watching it was wrestling is not the problem for this at all. Their wrestling is top notch. Even the Darby Allin 4th match with Cody Rhodes, was very enjoyable. Way more enjoyable than I thought it should be. And it told a great story. Even though they kind of did something that kind of negated that story at the end, but
yes and no. I mean, I think, well, I don't know. I don't know if Darby Allin's going to be hanging around or not. But I will say this, and even I was listening to, I don't know if you listened to Jim Cornette's podcast at all.
Yes.
But I was listening to him and Brian Last talking about it. And Brian Last was talking about, and he is not a Cody Rhodes fan at all. But he said Cody's stuff on the last 2 shows have been his favorite things.
Yes, they've been very good. He stepped it up.
And they compared what he's doing to Dusty, where it's like Dusty's like, you know, whatever, do your thing on you know, in your time, whatever. I'm going to get myself over, and this is going to mean something. And by God, I mean, it's going to mean something. But the next show they're having here, I mean, Greg brought it up before where he said, he's like, I'm not considering Fyter Fest, and I realize some things are going to happen at Fyter Fest and at Fight for the Fallen that are, you know, going to continue storylines or whatever. But he's like, I consider these like the Saudi Arabia shows in WWE. They're virtually non-canon.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because the Shawn Spears Cody Rhodes angle is not continuing on Fight for the Fallen. The only match the match that Cody's in is the Young Bucks versus Cody and Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Hangman Page, Adam Page, whatever you want to call him, is not in a storyline driven match. He's taking on Kip freaking Sabian, who in the one match I saw him in at Double or Nothing's buy-in, he was good, but I mean, like, he's taking on the guy going for the world title. Like, come on,
yeah.
You know, we know how this is going.
Yeah, I think it's very important that they build up the characters who are not the main event guys. Like, you know, everybody's talking about Jon Moxley, you know, Cody Rhodes and Hangman Page, but you got to build up those guys, those undercard guys, those guys who are going to help bring your company up, like a Jungle Boy, for example, like Darby Allin. If you're going to have Darby Allin a part of AEW, build him up. And I think the Cody Rhodes match was such a good way of doing that, showing he's like kind of this Mankind type character where he's not going to give up. You can beat the crap out of him the whole match, and this kid's not going down.
I do agree with the elevating, you know, the talent, so it's not like you just have a bunch of geeks on the roster, you know. There are some people that, I'm sorry, no matter who you put them in the ring against, they're a geek. It's just the way it is. But Kip Sabian, I mean, they put him on commentary for, I think, one match at Fyter Fest. They seem to be, they want people to see this guy, so they clearly have plans for him in the future, which is fine. I would like to see more of him if they have plans for him. I'm sure he'll have Adam Page has been blowing me away since debuting in AEW.
Yes.
I liked, after Adam Page became Hangman Page in the Bullet Club years ago, I became interested, and then he's just been growing on me more and more, but he's really been in top guy form in AEW, which is great.
Yeah, I think him and MJF are those franchise players, man. Those are the guys that you want to put your franchise behind. They are incredible. MJF reminds me of, like, the best parts of the heel Miz, but unfiltered. He's good. That kid is good, man. Impressive.
He's phenomenal. And the thing is, he keeps kayfabe, which you can never find anymore. He doesn't want anybody to like him. Nobody. Because he's a heel. Yes. Or, you know, as Jim Cornette would, you know, me and Greg always quote Jim Cornette, he's a heel, mother effer. He was over because he came out of a box. But MJF is on this card too. It's Jimmy Havoc, Darby Allin, who I guess is sticking around, and Joey Janela. I'll talk about him in a second. Versus MJF, Sammy Guevara, and Shawn Spears. So
I think
kind of a weird match.
Makes me think they're gonna build on the Shawn Spears thing.
Yeah.
Maybe Cody comes out and knocks the heck out of him or something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too. He'll get jumped.
Yeah.
And Sammy Guevara is good. I don't know how much he'll be around because he's also working AAA. He's a staple down there, I guess. MJF, will be the star of that team, and it's good to see that they're actually going to do something with Shawn Spears because, people like Greg, who's a big WWE backer and everything, he's like, so you complained WWE wasn't using you right, you quit, you go to AEW, and you get eliminated in your first show by a guy with no legs.
Yeah, I think the first appearance of Shawn Spears on TV should have been him hitting Cody Rhodes with that chair.
Yeah, I would say so. That would have really put an emphasis on him. But I don't want to say that Battle Royal, it clearly didn't kill him for the future.
No,
but
it didn't.
I think it wasn't good, especially when you're making, they're driving home, wins and losses matter. It's like, well, got eliminated by a guy we'll probably never see again from that joke of a Battle Royal on a pre-show.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega's taking on Shima. That'll be good.
That'll be really good.
Shima knows what he's doing. Kenny Omega always blows me away. I will say Kenny Omega has the most protected finishing move in the business. He never hits the one-winged angel unless he's going to win. Or I think maybe one person kicked out of the one-winged angel ever.
Him and Baron Corbin has the most protected finishers in wrestling.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Nobody's kicked out of in the days.
Yeah, and when he hit it on Seth at Stomping Grounds, he didn't get a chance to kick out. He hit it, and then crap hit the fan, and there was no pinfall. So yeah, he never kicked out. I think I could probably count on one hand, and still have 4 fingers left over of how many people kicked out of End of Days. I don't know. Has anybody?
I don't think anybody's kicked out of it. I don't think a single person's ever kicked out of it. Which is weird because it's Baron Corbin.
I know.
It's a phenomenal looking finisher, by the way.
It's original.
For all the crap people give Baron Corbin for being Baron Corbin, his finishing moves, his 2 finishers are pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, I love the deep 6. Yeah. And how he'll catch a little dude in midair with it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The match I'm least looking forward to on this entire card, it's going to be a snore fest because neither one of these women are good wrestlers. Brandy Rhodes versus Allie. Who asked for this?
You kind of have to have that on there.
You have to have a women's match, sure. But why, Brandy's not... She's a good actress, I'll say. She's cool to, be the other person at ringside with Cody. She's not that great.
Yeah, but you got to start building you got to start building your women's division, and I think Brandy Rhodes and Allie, for that matter, is going to be part of it, a big part of that. So,
unfortunately,
yeah, whether you like it or not, you have to have those characters have matches. You can't just not. And what better time to have them have matches than a free pay-per-view, essentially?
Yeah, well, I know Cody and Brandy have been sitting there going on about their great women's division and blah, 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 blah for a while. But seriously, they will never have the women's division. Well, I can't say never. For a long, long time, they will never have a women's division anywhere close to the WWE's.
Well, WWE keep messing up. They might get on WWE's women.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It looks like they've made nice with Sasha Banks, so it looks like she's coming back eventually, whenever that is. But I will ask you about what did you think of that unsanctioned lights out match between Mox and Joey Janela?
I thought it was fun, even if it was hokey as hell.
It was a spectacle.
Yeah, it was fun. It was very hokey, very, very hokey.
I don't know if it was hokey. I don't know. The thing, I'm like, what the hell is up? The 2 things that stood out to me Joe, the first time they laid that barbed wire chair down and Mox got thrown into it, he sat up with this look on his face going, God dang, I forgot how that felt. That hurt.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't done anything like that in years. So the other thing is the thumbtacks or whatever, but why? Who the hell sits there? It was, and Joey Janela's like, here's what I want you to do: take off my shoes and then drop me feet first into the thumbtacks. Why?
Yeah, it was just certain things about that match. I'm like, come on, like really, like the whole it was the barbed wire board.
Yeah, well, you always gotta have a barbed wire board, Delvin.
Like,
come on, man.
Like, who the hell is like making up barbed wire boards all day? Like, come on, like
John freaking Moxley, I guess. By the way, not to give away trade secrets here, but I've seen one of those barbed wire wrapped chairs being made before. It still hurts like hell, but they wrap it in barbed wire and then they beat the crap out of that chair, or the barbed wire specifically, to beat down as much of the barbs as possible.
So it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not getting stabbed a million times when you land on it. Just maybe once or twice.
Yeah, which makes sense. And I think, I feel like those matches are cool to see, but it's not necessary for the person to actually get hurt. Like, if you can make a barbed wire match with a wrestler, it looks cool, but he doesn't get hurt, I'm fine with that. Like, it doesn't have to be real barbed wire. I am absolutely fine with him not getting hurt by it. I'd rather him not get hurt so I can see him wrestle a couple nights later than opposed to him actually getting injured on barbed wire and stuff. I've never been the type of person who loves death matches and stuff like that with real stuff.
No.
People actually almost killing themselves,
I will tell you that I have not. It takes a lot in wrestling and hardcore matches because I've seen a lot. It takes a lot for me to really cringe. That match made me like kind of squirm in my chair a little bit, just because of especially the feet thing. I was just like, oh, why? No. I will say this. At least we didn't get the freaking Cracker Barrel again.
Yeah. The thumbtack thing didn't bother me because I thought to myself, I said, those thumbtacks can't be real. They probably had to bend off the tack part of it.
Oh, they were real. You could see him sticking in his foot. He was bleeding. I was like, oh, why?
I couldn't it's just like I said, I like the violence in wrestling as long as it's necessary and it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they don't need to overdo it. Yeah. But when you've got people like Jimmy Havoc, Darby Allin, Joey Janela, John Moxley, and there are others, but those are the main four I'm going to go with right off the bat in your promotion. I mean, come on, you're going to have this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I love both. I love all those guys you named.
Yeah.
But like I said, JR said it too. Like, you got to think about, I'd rather them be safe and be around for 20 years than do crazy stuff and be around for 5 years.
Yep, I know. Well, yeah, because who's going to, Joey Janela needs to think about that, because it's like, dude, after you get dropped by a crap-ass CZW reject off of a roof through a million tables and light tubes and whatever, if you get paralyzed, who's paying your bills?
Yeah.
Penelope Ford? Come on, dude. But either way, I think it's time to move on to a little bit of WWE stuff there, because there's a lot to talk about. We're going to take one more real quick break. I know we're going a little long on this show. There's some good stuff, lots to talk about. When we come back, we're going to talk some WWE, and then I'm going to throw in my UFC rundown right after that. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're the hosts of the Ringside Podcast.
We were annoyed by the lack of hockey coverage on local sports radio and decided that we were stupid enough to try and provide some ourselves.
We have what we call the Ringside Guarantee. We guarantee that the podcast you're currently listening to is better than ours. We are literally just two halves of one whole idiot trying to fumble through covering the Detroit Red Wings, the National Hockey League, and hockey in general.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Ringside Pod, and subscribe to us on all your favorite podcast providers.
Every time you listen to our podcast, it brings us one step closer to our ultimate business goal of purchasing the Arizona Coyotes and then moving them to Detroit. What? Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming, or just another commercial. We aren't the ones who make those choices.
All right, we're back, and it's time to dive into the big WWE news. I'm going to go through an order here. There's only three major things I really want to talk about, and Greg and I talked about some of it already. If you are not subscribed to us on YouTube, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. Go do it. YouTube.com/Podcast Wrestling Society. But I'm going to ask you, obviously, the news broke. Paul Heyman is taking over as executive producer, I think it is, of Raw. And Eric Bischoff is taking over SmackDown. Bischoff has not, he's started, but he hasn't had a show. According to Uncle Dave and others, I guess Bischoff's first official show will be the post-Extreme Rules SmackDown.
Yes.
But Heyman's was last week, for those of you listening. What did you think of Heyman's first Raw that he actually had his fingerprints all over?
I thought it was great. I think it's the right direction to go into with the show. I feel like it almost seems like they're going back in that PG-13 Raw, which is, I think it's good. I think Raw needs to be a little more edgier. I wouldn't say it necessarily has to go to PG-13 for it to be edgier. I just think that they need to tell coherent storylines. That's one of the
Don't be corny.
Don't be corny. I think people are like, we're getting back into PG-13. That wasn't the problem with Raw. The problem with Raw was bad storytelling, not enough substance.
Well, look back at the golden era of WWE, back in the 80s and the early 90s and everything. Like, storytelling was great back then, and they had a lot of fans, and they weren't running around flipping people off and dropping F-bombs and whatever else.
Well, we ain't got to go back that far. Look back when CM Punk became the champion. That was during the PG era. The pipe bomb was during the PG era, and that stuff was awesome.
Yeah, 2011 was a good time. That era.
Daniel Bryan, his rise to championship was awesome, and that was during the PG era. It can be done. Like I said, it doesn't have to be. Even though I don't mind it being PG-13, of course, and I think from what I was hearing about it is they're making it they're gonna make it PG-13 again because they know kids will watch anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss that for sure. For those of you on Raw, or who have and haven't watched Raw, I thought it was a good show all the way around. I thought SmackDown was a good show, but we had not Cody Rhodes. Gosh, I'm still thinking AEW. Corey Graves dropping holy excrement, in the first few minutes of Raw. Then we have on SmackDown Kofi Kingston flipping Samoa Joe the bird. And on Raw, we had, I will say this, unless it goes somewhere where they do something with Mike Kanellis, dude, that freaking mixed tag Mike and Maria Kanellis storyline, just mother of God.
Yeah. I think, how do I say this nicely? I'm not going to say this now. I'm going to say it straight up. They are screwing up all the goodwill they have with Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong, and this isn't a whole, man shouldn't play second fiddle to the woman, blah, blah, blah. That's not it. But it almost makes it seem like, Becky's got to come to Seth's rescue. That really makes him look tough.
Yeah, it's not only that, it's just that to add to that, Becky needs her own storylines. You've had this woman on this storyline for over a month with the same wrestler.
Yeah, which nobody cares about.
Exactly. We need to see, we want to see Becky Lynch as a champion face different people, get different challenges, see how she interacts with different people. We've virtually got, 3 people she challenged?
Yeah, basically.
We got Charlotte, we got Ronda Rousey, and we got, what her name?
Lacey Evans.
Lacey Evans.
Yeah.
We need to see Becky Lynch in more convincing matches to show why she's awesome, why she is the quote-unquote man. And the same can be said for Seth Rollins. We don't need to see any more matches with him and Baron Corbin. Please stop.
Hell no.
Like, give us Seth Rollins being Seth Rollins. Like, do the whole open challenge thing like they had with John Cena. Like, have him face off against somebody different every week and build off of that. Let's see Seth Rollins versus anybody. Let's get the Kofi Kingston Seth Rollins match that was promised that we never got.
Well, especially when Seth is going to go on Twitter and shoot his mouth off about nobody can do what I can do at my level as much as I do it. Okay, then go out and have kick-ass matches, not these boring matches that get hijacked by the crowd with Baron Corbin.
Yeah, and to add to that, now, if we had somebody the caliber of an Eric Bischoff in charge then, they could have easily took that whole Seth Rollins thing and made it a really cool storyline where somebody comes out, maybe from NXT, and just straight up challenges him. Straight up says, you're not the best. I'm the best. I'll fight you tonight. You could have did so many cool things with that one moment, because WWE loves to add social media into their shows. So why not do it in a way that could be more compelling?
I don't know. There are a few things that get me, like Stomping Ground. Like, the pictures were floating around. Like, the attendance was god awful. They had 6,500 people in the building. Only 4,000 of them paid. The rest of them got free tickets. And they tarped off half of the freaking arena. Raw the next night, attendance was abysmal. And it's because nobody cared.
Yeah.
And yet Vince is looking at that and going, aha, this is good crap. Let's do it again next month. Like, why?
I know people say that. I don't even think that's what it is he's doing. I think it's just his ego. He thinks that they're going to change. People are going to adapt to it.
Feed it to them.
I'm going to feed it to them. They're going to love it. They may not like it right now, but they will come around to it, like the whole Roman Reigns thing, where he kept forcing Roman Reigns down people's throat when people were saying, no, ease back a little bit. We don't want this right now. He kept doing it and doing it and doing it till people just got sick of Roman Reigns and hated the guy for no reason. And it literally took cancer for people to like Roman Reigns again.
Yeah, he killed any chance of Roman Reigns getting over for a while, because the thing that he could have made Roman a star when he wanted, but well, not exactly when he wanted, but shortly thereafter, if he would have just placated the crowd a little bit and then tried it again in a couple months. But no, it was like, no, it's got to happen now because I said so and you're going to like it. And they crapped all over it. WrestleMania 32, I mean, Greg loved it because he's a Roman Reigns fan and a Triple H fan, but by all accounts, it was one of the worst WrestleManias with one of the worst endings. It went over like a wet fart.
Yeah.
And then WrestleMania 34, I was there and I was amped and I was into the main event, but gosh, I didn't being in the crowd was hella annoying. I don't know what it was like at home. I assume that was also annoying.
Yes. And that's the thing about Vince McMahon that drives me crazy. And he's so bullheaded in terms of he wants things his way and his way is going to work. And you can see it in NXT. To show that he doesn't have that much to do with how different, how thriving NXT is and how cool NXT is for that matter. But it gets overshadowed by the fact of how bad Raw and SmackDown's been.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, the one thing from Raw that I loved it. I feel it was way too late. Well, not too late, but it was way past due. Is the club getting together?
Yeah,
like,
that was awesome.
It was awesome, but it was like, what took so freaking long? Why? They were together for like a cup of coffee when AJ first came in, and then
Talk
that was
about
it.
A missed opportunity.
Yeah, because they brought the night that Gallows and Anderson debuted, I was like, yes, that is perfect. They almost brought them in like the outsiders in WCW. It was great.
Could you imagine a prolonged Shield versus the club feud?
That would have been awesome. That would have been freaking awesome. But no, we got the Dogs of War.
Which they disbanded like a match later.
Yeah, well, we got, 3 or 4 different versions of the Dogs of War? Like, good Lord, guys.
The pound puppies.
Yeah, they sucked.
Yeah.
But
it's not the fault of the wrestlers at all. It's the fault of WWE and their creative being so bad.
Well, it's the fault of throwing Baron Corbin and Bobby Lashley in there when they were not over. But the club thing, I'm glad it's finally happening. I was so happy to see that. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
And the prolonged AJ Styles versus Ricochet feud, I am not unhappy about that whatsoever. That is awesome. And maybe now we can get a prolonged match on a freaking pay-per-view for once instead of this whole no wrestling during the commercial breaks thing is like killing a lot of momentum during these shows.
I think they need to do a better job at it. If they want no wrestling during commercials, they need to pace their shows better so it doesn't end up like that. Like, there's ways they can do it where it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I think WWE used to do this. And WCW for that matter, where they have it look like, oh, this person is going into the locker room. Who they're going to talk to? Then cut to commercial. Then you come back to a middle of a match or something like that.
Yeah, like can't they time out the show a little better?
A lot more.
Or do the entrances, commercial, come back, match. Like, why is that so hard? I don't think they have hard times. Like, good Lord. But I don't know. I think it's stupid. But it is what it is. The abandoning the PG rating, you and I were talking about that. What I've read is like that shocks me because I've heard for years, and I'm sure you have too, or read for years, whatever, that the sponsors, the TV networks, everybody has pounded into WWE that they want PG programming, no adult content, that kind of stuff. And like especially the sponsors have really and the stakeholders and whatever is like, no, PG is best for business. We need to keep that. So I don't know why they're like, you know what? No, we're gonna spice it up a little bit, make it more adult.
Simple. They are losing ground and money, and now they see themselves having competition. And Eric Bischoff has said it numerous times on 83 Weeks. He said one of the worst things that happened to WCW is when Turner Broadcasting came in and started calling shots and started saying, you can't do this on TV, you can't do that on TV, during the AOL Time Warner merger, because they were like, they kind of handcuffed WCW. A lot of things that they were doing and wanted to do, they couldn't do anymore.
Right. And I feel that if WWE doesn't overdo like Attitude Era style, if they don't do that, yet they have Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, who are great at coming up with like realistic, edgy content, or at least were back in the day, then, and it's not like Vince has forgotten what he's done in the past. Just, he needs to keep the stupid, goofy BS humor out of stuff.
Yes.
But there's a way to make it more edgy and realistic yes, I get PG could maybe handcuff them in certain areas where it's like, well, why is somebody doing that? Well, because, it's, we have to keep it more kid-friendly, stuff like that. I get it. They're never going to bring back blood because that's just like a health thing that they're into, which, I mean, I don't know. They've only broken out blood once in a, like the Roman Reigns thing where Triple H beat his face into the commentator table. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And he bled a gusher. I'm pretty sure it was all fake, but I don't know. And then accidental blood here and there. I felt that beat down on Raw of Ricochet could have used some blood. I was kind of hoping for some blood after a while, especially when AJ's raining down fists on him. But I mean, it's not like the segment wasn't cool because it didn't have blood.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. And I get there's a health risk to that and whatever, but I do think that not handcuffing yourselves where you're like, no, we have to be PG will make the content better, more realistic, and I don't know, a wider audience will approve of it, rather than, like I said, I feel like you're limiting yourself by saying, no, it has to be kid friendly.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I think that they're going for that teenager demographic now. So they're going to start changing some things, which makes me wonder, are they going to go back not to the aggressive way they were before, but the whole let's show puppies now and again thing?
I don't know. I mean, especially with the women's revolution, I think they've really got they do have to handle with kid gloves. I think they can't have just eye candy women anymore. I realize, they're obviously Lacey. It's well, why is she in a top spot? Because she's gorgeous. Just look at her. And it's okay, whatever. But yeah, I think they're limited.
They've had moments where they look like they were going to go someplace they probably shouldn't go, like the whole Alexa Bliss thing where they walked in unless about she was changing, whoa, and they never even said anything about that since they did that too, which was just one weird random thing.
Yeah, it was. I felt that was stupid because not that I'm oh man, I don't want to, but it's why? Why is it why was there a camera there? Why did we show this? Just the whole thing was weird, and it was clearly a clickbait type deal.
Yeah,
and it didn't work.
It was like they wanted to see how people responded to it.
Yeah,
and maybe if people responded highly to it or didn't say anything about it, they were going to go further with it.
Yeah,
but since people didn't respond to it, they just left it alone.
I think so. That's probably accurate. The one thing, and I like this team, but why the hell were the Street Profits on Raw?
I don't know.
Quit calling up champions from NXT. Just quit it. And here's my thing when they were, we're gonna shake things up and all this other BS and we're calling up all these guys and gals from NXT. Cool, I guess, not like I disliked anybody on that list. I mean, maybe Lars Sullivan.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, it's you say, we're calling them up. Okay, what are you going to do with them? I don't know. We'll figure it out when they get here. And then they never figured it out when they got there.
I would be fine with it if they do one thing that I think they should do with it.
What's that?
Do an invasion angle.
Yeah, that would be cool. I would love that.
All this time, they've been having all these NXT wrestlers go up to the main roster and done nothing with them. Then all of a sudden, somebody let's say the Velveteen Dream just comes out and says, just does a straight up invasion. We're taking over Raw now. You guys have been sucking for so long. And these guys who people thought were basically Team Raw or SmackDown just turns on them and beats the crap out of them. EC3 starts talking all of a sudden because he hasn't said
awesome.
Damn thing since he got up to the main roster. So
yeah.
There's something they can do with it. They just have to do something, think outside the box. And I think having NXT invade Raw and SmackDown and become an unstoppable force would be really cool to watch happen.
Would. And yeah, I mean, something that I think they should do that closer to like Survivor Series or something. But yeah, I mean, like the Street Profits were there for absolutely no reason. They put over the fact that they were the NXT Tag Team Champions. It's like, okay, cool, I guess. And then that was it. But another team, I like that they finally, like the Viking Raiders. I got to get used to calling them that.
Dumb name.
Yeah, it's like just leave them War Raiders, call them Hanson and Rowe. But no, they're Eric and Ivar or whatever the hell, the Viking Raiders. Okay, whatever. Either way, they pretty much established that they're stone cold heels, so that's cool, I guess.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I don't think I've ever seen them wrestle as heels, but you know, it's cool. I don't know how I don't know the dynamic of face versus heels in the tag division right now.
Yeah, the tag division is jacked up. That's the best way to describe it. Like, you got a great champion that's Daniel Bryan and Rowan. Then you got Heavy Machinery, who had a great match with Daniel Bryan and Rowan.
Yep.
Then you got the Usos, who are great, but they're not really doing much.
Yeah, not right now.
It's like it just seems so convoluted right now.
I don't know where they're going with the tag division, to be honest with you. It's been weird and messy for a while.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they figure it out. But yeah, I'm really anxious to see Eric Bischoff's first go round as the head of SmackDown. I want to see if anything looks different, feels different. You know, and I have heard that he and Paul Heyman do not like 205 Live, and they like the Cruiserweight division, not 205 Live, so they want to abolish that show and just have the Cruiserweights on Raw and SmackDown, which I think is a great idea.
I'm fine with that.
Because, I mean, nobody watches 205 Live anyway, other than, I mean, friend of the show, Jacob Grandi, he does a podcast called 205 Jive. It actually makes you kind of care about the show, but that's just because he knows what he's doing behind a mic. But other than that, the 205, the actual 205 Live show, it's not that it's bad, just nobody watches it.
Yeah, I think they need to, if they're going to keep 205 Live, they need to restructure it. Figure out a way to make it work. Maybe not, because if I'm correct, they record 205 Live after SmackDown, right?
I want to say yes. Or, well, when does it air? Because I forget the date. It used to air right after SmackDown on Tuesdays.
Yes.
It doesn't anymore, because me and Greg were laughing about that, because we're like, well, 205 Live isn't live anymore, so I don't know why they call it that. So I don't remember what day it comes on even. See, there you go. We don't even know what day it's on. That's sad.
Yeah, that's really bad. Like, I would go as far to say, maybe turn the time slot for 205 Live to a women's wrestling show.
That could work, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It seems like women's wrestling is more hotter than 205 Live right now, so why not have an hour dedicated to women's matches?
Might as well. I mean, can't get any worse ratings than what they already got.
Yeah,
more people watch Ride Along than 205 Live.
Yeah.
Reruns of Ride Along, by the way. Not even like the current shows.
That's rough.
It really is. Well, before I let you go here, man, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. I think we touched on everything.
Yeah, we had a real good, productive talk today. I've enjoyed it. I'm glad I was finally able to get you on the podcast. And for all of you, I'm probably going to do a YouTube exclusive about UFC, because we went a little long on the podcast. I don't want to keep you all on here for too long, but go to youtube.com/Fyter /Podcast Wrestling Society. I will be talking about what happened at UFC, so it should be up there by now for all of you out there. And you can keep up with the podcast on there as well if you don't feel like having a podcast app per se. YouTube.com/Podcast Wrestling Society. And check us out on BigHeadsMedia.com as well. Where can they find the Delvin Cox Experience?
The Delvin Cox Experience is on all podcasting apps, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you want to go. And if you want to holler at me, you can holler at me on Twitter at Delvin_Cox.
That is simple enough. And so go check him out, follow him. I try to retweet his stuff whenever I see it pop up on my Twitter app there. And follow us, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I always update about the newest shows. Thank you for joining me today, Delvin.
You're welcome, brother. Anytime.
And as far as I know, next week, like I said, Taryn Bland will be joining me for a big weekend in review, from UFC to WWE to Evolve to AEW. And I want to say there's a G1 show that weekend too.
I think it is.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be a long weekend. Either way, it's going to be a good time. Our 52nd show, we will be a year old. Thank you for being a part of that, Delvin.
You're welcome, brother. Anytime.
Oh yeah, and we will see you all later.